Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike Jones today. Hello, Mike Jones, today.
Hi, Dale Matthews. This is Today on
So, in case
Inside News.
you, our viewers, don't really know what it is that the county commissioners feel about you, we thought we'd just share one little short clip from the Thursday meeting, the most important meeting of the week, and then we're going to look at the commissioners discussing House Bill 3453 and putting an advisory question on the ballot. This is a show about politics. That's the kind of stuff that we do. So, Cheryl Walker, would you please tell us, what do you think about the citizens of this county?
Well, we're hearing, at least I am, I presume that you are too, getting all kinds of feedback or input from people out there. You know, you ask for suggestions and you get everything from the impossible to the bizarre. and
one of them might work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everything from the impossible to the bizarre. Isn't that nice?
Yes. And listen, I understand from her mindset, I mean, impossible to bizarre that's relative to what what your worldview is in many cases. And in her case, there's only one thing that solves this problem, and that's higher taxation. Any other suggestion, the only suggestion that she's interested in are a suggestion about what level of taxation you'd be comfortable with. So,
bizarre doesn't make me very happy to hear that. The truth is, there's a lot of different kind of citizens out there, including Cheryl Walker. She is a citizen of the county, right. And I would posit that the gamut of the gamut of options ranges from doable to not doable, or from maybe possibilities to crazy. I'm okay with that. But from the impossible to the bizarre, saying that that's what the citizens say, and what these guys are saying is oh so reasonable, that's insulting.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not so quick to jump on her for that. I think there probably are some pretty bizarre suggestions.
Yes. But they only range from impossible to bizarre?
Yeah, okay. All right. Yes. But I mean, I think she's expressing something in that moment there that is, listen, she's frustrated that she can't get a tax pass.
That's right.
It's her entire objective. And
that's her legacy.
Right. So I understand she's frustrated. I'm frustrated at people who automatically reject things that I know would be solutions on the basis that they believe that they're impossible.
Or bizarre, thanks.
Or bizarre, but their thought that it's impossible is only because they have a belief that this is the only way that it goes, and it can't go any other way than that. I would say if you sat down Simon Hare and you had a conversation with him about the ONC and federal government and the forests and all that kind of stuff, he would tell you, well, you can't do that. Yeah, you can't do that. There's
even stuff that we've already done, even stuff that other counties are doing. Those things are impossible.
Yeah, right. It's just so you cannot do that. Listen, I know for a fact, just based on what has happened in my own life and the humiliation that I have suffered from having a negative attitude and then having somebody with a positive attitude come in and just totally nail what I was saying was impossible.
I've had that experience as well. I've had the experience where I was doing something and a guy calls me up when I'm in the middle of a project, and on his own dime, he lectures me for half an hour about how what I'm trying to do is impossible, and I'm already doing it.
Yeah. Well, but the point that I'm trying to make is that when you have a particular mindset, and that is federal top down, they dig that. They just love it. that top down, that hierarchy, working your way up the ladder, and no other solution but that. There is no us telling them, hey, you gotta meet the terms of your contract. It's only we must kowtow to them. Everything that they tell us is the way. That's how it needs to be. Somebody that has that mindset, there's no way they're ever going to make any sort of progress on dealing with the issue that we have with the federal government and getting more money from them. Now, Lynn County, they have no such preconceived notion about that situation. So they're dealing with the state of Oregon, and I have to assume that somewhere in there is a plan to deal with the federal issue as well. Although, for them, the state issue would actually net them quite a bit of money, whereas, the only thing we got going is the federal, really. No, I think it's time for people that are open to other solutions besides greater taxation. I hate that being boxed into this little thing where there's only one solution, and that is that you just need to pay more money. You're not paying your fair share,
Well, don't anybody buy into this idea of, well, you guys never bring us solutions. Of course, we do that nightly here. But besides that, I was sitting in that, we mentioned it before, a 2.5-hour meeting where people came up with for 2.5 hours. They had nothing but non-tax solutions. And at the conclusion of that, and even during it, the commissioners were like, hey, you can't hear us when your head's rattling like that. They just, absolutely nothing that was suggested. Were they even going to, because none of the suggestions were a sales tax or, a property tax, none of them.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Well, and this is the problem when they come in, you're referring to, at the commissioners meeting there, and when you come in with the preconceived notion, as they do, that, the only thing you're interested in hearing, what earth-shattering thing could people possibly come up with that's another tax that they've never thought of or heard before? We're 20 years down the road here. I think that we've heard pretty much every way we can be taxed. Maybe you would get the idea that we don't want to be taxed, and that really is the problem. If we wanted to be taxed, the problem would be solved, because it's not like there hasn't been a shortage of opportunities to add yet another taxing plan to the repertoire.
Well, I'm glad you asked me that, because just yesterday somebody sent me an email. Well, what's your plan for our fiscal crisis for law enforcement? And I said, look, you're looking at this wrong. I was polite to the guy. The thing is, the citizens have said, they've done their cost benefit analysis. They've decided this is what we want to pay. Now, everybody else, the sheriff included, is just going to have to do what they always promise. I will live with what you give me, because that's it. They've been crystal clear. Now, maybe they're smart, maybe they're not, but they've said what they want. So stop telling them that, well, you're going to need to do more, because they're saying we're not going to do more. End of story. So you're just going to have to live within that. And if you think that's not enough, okay, then you try to get something passed, but it's not happening. So we're going to need to find another solution. That's all. I need a new car. I need a new car. I need a new car. You can't have a new car, but I need a new car. You can't have one. So now what are you going to do?
Maybe I'll fix the old one.
Yeah, well, there better be some kind of solution, buddy, because you're not getting that. And representatives would represent the people's wishes that way. And they might even think the people are crazy, okay, or that the people range from impossible to bizarre, okay. I don't think it's a smart thing to say in public, but first of all, if you think that, I don't think you should be a representative except for the Rotary Club, but certainly that kind of stuff goes over there. And Walden just talked with the Rotary Club, and he was the one that told him, in direct opposition to what the Democrat senator was saying, what? That, oh, well, the commissioners are right. This is it. That's hey. We voted. Are you an American or what? We voted.
Right.
Well,
or what there.
Okay, now this impossible to bizarre, what's ironic about that, they have no sense of irony, is then they sit down and have a long conversation about the idea of how would House Bill 3453, how would that work out? Really? And you're saying that we're coming up with impossible or bizarre solutions? Let's go ahead and we'll let Wally Hicks give them a hand on figuring out how to put this advisory question on the ballot. And the thing to watch for is, what is the reason for the advisory question? They tell you everything that you need to know about their real motivation by watching this tape. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so at the board's request of last week, I did create a draft of a ballot title in regards to the advisory question, having to do with what we have been calling House Bill 453 from the 2013 legislative session. And it is actually technically known now as, well, it's a provision within Chapter 753 of Oregon Laws 2013.
Whatever.
Anyway, I did provide this to you late yesterday for your hopeful review before this meeting, and I was hoping to garner your input on this, and I could return again at a subsequent meeting with your edits, if you will, and you could decide whether you want to vote it on at that time.
Does it make any difference on the question 20 or the questions, the first three words, in your opinion? Are we, I mean, is that, I mean, I realize that this is not a binding situation, but are we after people's opinion, or are we after people's, I mean, I don't know.
Oh, brother. Mike, can you turn the audio up a little on that? He wants to know, he says, I realize this is not a binding situation. And what was his question?
Are we really after people's opinions here? Yes.
It's an advisory question.
And it seems to me that they are after people's opinions, but let's understand. I mean, let's just get all the fluff out of the way. They are frustrated at not being able to pass a levy. They are frustrated that they haven't been able to get their way. Now, what they're investigating here with this is, how can we get the state to come in and force these heathens to take a tax increase?
That's correct.
And make it seem like it was their idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's quite right. Okay, play the next clip. That's right.
Well, I have a question about the content. Is this the full 175 words?
I think it's 169.
169?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, it says such an agreement can provide that the state would pay for half the cost of public safety services and the county would pay for the other half, but it doesn't say that it would be mandated to be assessed as a tax. It doesn't say that.
Oh, existing funds can be used.
It doesn't say that. Okay.
Revenue generated.
That's the problem, though. We don't have existing funds.
No, it would be through property taxes, so it would double the 3.7 that we generate. We also have the provision to generate an additional tax, but that would have to be referred to the voters on 911.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so how is it going to resolve the public safety problem?
You're asking, like, we need to ask the other.
We need to ask the other part, because if we just have what we have, the 3.7, and then we're going to get another 3.7 or 4, whatever, rounded up to 4. We have 4 right now, which is inadequate. If we get another 4, that's still not adequate. That's only 8.
Right.
Well, that's twice what you got now.
Okay, so obviously what she's saying here is, where in this document, in the title, or the title is more than just a short thing, it's longer than that. It's called the title, it's stupid. Or in the description, which is 175 words, where can we put on here that we're going to end up taxing? Because that is the reason they're interested in this, because
Totally.
if they can't get us to do a tax, then they want to tell the state it's an emergency, and then they will impose the tax.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then they can just say, well, you left us no choice.
Right. It's tax, tax, or tax. Which one do you want?
We had to do it. But here's the thing. These scenarios, which she's postulating here, only occur if SRS doesn't come in. because she's saying, we only have 4. Well, we only had 4 before SRS came in, and
That's
then
correct,
we
sir.
had quite a bit more than that. So if we don't get SRS again, so how? Let's say SRS comes in. How do you then say to the state we got an emergency situation?
Oh, they got an answer here. I'm not sure it's going to be real clear on this tape, but listening to them, what they're thinking is, if SRS does come in, and the state agrees with these characters that it's a fiscal emergency, then the state would double the SRS payments.
Okay. Yeah, the state would double the SRS payments, but the thing that she appears to be saying is she wants it to be made very clear that they'll double the SRS payments, but you're going to pay the SRS pay the doubling of that.
And you'll need to pay double the taxes that we're paying now, probably.
Right.
And everything's going to be raised. This is a dream scenario for these guys. The only sticking point would be, and they don't talk about it here, of course they don't, is will they get to keep their phony baloney? I mean, will they be able to keep their lofty positions?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Do they have some sort of administrator that comes in and does the job of the commissioner as a part of this law?
And you'll hear near the end, I'm mentioning it now in case somehow we run out of time, the number one thing that's happy for these guys, especially for Simon Hare, is there used to be a provision in there that they would send somebody down here to do some kind of forensic analysis of the books. And now that's no longer part of the plan. Well, now it looks pretty good. Hey, we don't need to worry about some kind of fiscal review board coming down here to find out what we've done. See, if you elect the right 2 people, whoever they are, they're going to do that. And you can believe that there's going to be rats jumping the ship, buddy, because once these people get in there, our people, the regular population, and start investigating those books, there's going to be shredders running all night long, buddy.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. I think you're onto something there.
It's the last thing that they can tolerate. And there's lots of people that are not in government who are going to help with that. If they're not physically there, they're because they're all part of it too. What about the people who've been given grants that never did anything with it? What about the people who are big in loans, or they've been paying them back? What's the finance directors? What happened to that equipment that was gone and has our tags on it that was supposed to be for public access television? All of those things, there's going to be hell to pay.
Yeah, that's the crony support system. Yep.
It'll all be exposed. And then all these vampires are going to burst into flames.
Yeah.
Yeah. A reflection of the community, they don't have any reflection. When they look in the mirror, there's nothing there. Go ahead, Mike. Nice analogy.
So I think I know the answer to this measure anyway, but
I think I know the
point point of full disclosure is if people think that we can do this, it'll solve our problem, we're willing to do that.
Different questions, because technically we don't have to exercise an additional tax to what we're doing right now to fulfill what 3453 is intended. And this question answers like the first part of the question. Your question definitely answers the second part.
For us to come up with our half, we're going to have to assess a tax because the 4 we have now isn't enough and 8 isn't enough. But even if the state gave us another $4 million, it's not enough. The public safety budget right now is about $9 million. We're looking at 8.
Now I cut this there because wait a minute. This is the big problem. They keep saying to us all the time, we don't have enough money. This is what you have. And the sheriff said, I will live with what you give me. And this is what the people voted on. So by definition, that's going to have to be enough. Stop telling us it's not enough.
Well, the rest of the sentence is, it's not enough to do the things that we want to do.
Right.
And of course they would say that what they want to do is to have an adequate level of public safety, whereas, it wouldn't be somehow adequate unless they had that amount of money. If there's one thing you could almost be sure of, anything that government does can be done at probably pretty close to half the price and do a better job if it's done by somebody else.
Look at the school board idea. They're talking about 6 people for the price of 1.5, 6 ex-patrolmen.
Right.
For the price of so we know that that's possible. And the other thing is, all you need to do is ask anybody that lives out in the county. I don't. I live in the city, but anyone who lives out in the county, when they were at full funding, were you seeing patrols? Well, no. So what's going to be different for the people out in the county?
Well, you know what? I see an economic development opportunity for a security company that would come in and say, hey, listen, I would like to supply security to this block area.
Yeah.
That is 6 blocks this way, 6 blocks that way, and we'll provide security in there, and here's what we want for that, and it'll be on a subscription sort of basis, won't cost very much at all, and they can hire, what did you say it was, 8 people for 100
six people for like 180,000. Yeah.
Yeah. And listen, I mean, this is a problem. If the private sector can do something like that for so much less, you have to examine why is it that the public sector cannot do these things unless you charge 10 times what the cost would be to the private sector. Why do we accept that as an answer?
Right.
As a legitimate answer? That's just ridiculous.
And the other thing is, I've talked about it on this show before. Well, people are voting to give more money for pets than they are for children. Yes, I don't think I agree with that, but that's what the people voted on. So you don't like it? You can move to another community, but that's what these guys have decided. Now, are you going to represent them or not? Well, I don't like it. Well, then get out of office, because that's what the people do over and over and over and over and over again. That's what they've decided. Well, that's not right. I'm sorry you feel that way. That's what they've decided. So live with it.
Yeah.
The people are okay. Maybe the people are wrong, but that's their vote. It's their money. Well, you need this. Well, that's not what they want to do. Well, you have to spend it. No. Well, we'll get the governor to make you spend it. What are you saying? Get out of office.
You know what? This is one of the things that bothers me, because only this 3453 has given these people an avenue to achieve their goals, circumventing the will of the people.
Yes.
And unfortunately, and I posted something on Josephine County Politics the other day that basically shows the state. There's a couple of little blue counties up top, and then the rest of the state is red. In other words, they're conservative, and inside that little blue bubble up there, they're liberal, and they have a certain way of doing things, and imposing this kind of thing on people is part of their MO. So do we want a situation like that? They've set up, obviously this 3453 was set up specifically with forcing counties that don't want to pay a higher level of property tax to pay a higher level of property tax. It's its entire purpose.
Coos and Josephine. And
Okay.
if it's implemented, only 2 counties, guess which 2, can take advantage of it, if you call that taking advantage. So these guys are licking their chops. They're figuring, okay, what can we do? They love talking about this because this is what they wanted. It's not what we want. Right. It's not what's been voted. We know it's not what we want because we voted. You don't have to take a poll. You don't have to spend $25,000 to do a poll. Oh, look, it's scientific. No. We've already had a poll. It's called a vote. Yeah. And if you don't like it, then don't run to be reelected.
So you know what, though? I don't think these people are stupid.
No.
So I think that they have already gone through and understood. I believe that they're formulating the questions to go on the ballot for the purpose of either answer being the trigger.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Because I think they've resigned themselves to that this cannot pass the people, and now it's time to just impose it upon them.
And what kind of government does that? Mike, I think you know the answer.
Yes, I do know the answer. I get sick and tired of saying,
it's an imperial attitude, isn't it?
Yes.
It's an imperial attitude. Play a little bit more of this meeting. Let's show the people what they're saying behind your back.
We have 500 words in the explanatory statement too. That's haven't written yet.
That's true.
So that could be an explanatory statement that goes with this? I'm just saying we have 500 words, so.
You shouldn't say that. Yeah.
I don't know.
So that'll be something. I mean, thankfully we have till February 26th. We have the opportunity to tease out these moments. I appreciate you getting us something.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you gotta start somewhere because we'd asked to get started, but if there's another place, if there's another place to put it, that would be available for people to read in regards to, you know, this, there isn't gonna be some magic number coming from the state.
And the 500. 500 is to explain what you, ballot summary. So you're saying, we need to include it here, and if there's a need for more explanation in the 500 words, that's what you can't introduce a new concept in the description. In my opinion. That would not be, that would be
right.
Very good.
Yeah, you get that one?
Yes, you can't introduce a new concept in the description, and that makes sense. I'm a little worried here because if they ask you questions that are obviously going to lead you to one answer or the other,
they've already said they know what the answer is going to be.
Yeah, they know what the answer is going to be. So they're actually shooting for a particular answer. And let's find out a way to make that the trigger. Let's make the questions sufficiently vague enough so that they would really need more information to have a full understanding. And then when they open it up, there's a 2,000-word description there that that they're obviously not going to read all of. And the last couple of sentences will contain the Easter egg.
They are prepping us. This is Cheryl's. It seems like her biggest desire on earth is to teach the children a lesson. Yes. We are not doing what we've been instructed to do. I told you to vote for this and you didn't. So you're going to sit down and have a lecture.
Yeah. Wow.
I would hope that we can encourage her to move into a retirement home and lecture the other old folks there. And if Keith's awake, he will listen to her. They can talk in a quorum then, but get out of this office. Because we don't want your lecture. We've told you, and you're not listening to us. There's the communication problem.
Yeah, you know, God, the sad thing, I don't want to leave this county. At some point, though, if this kind of governance continues, I'm not going to have a choice. Because I'm not going to stick around and allow them to do all of this. You know, I'll go somewhere where they govern with sanity.
Well,
you know,
I haven't left because this is where the fight is. I haven't left because the last thing that you're going to see on this tape is Wally Hicks saying, "I'll try not to be too clear. I'll try not to be too clear." That's our Wally Hicks. It's the guy that we elected to represent us, right? I'll try not. Does that remind you of let's be purposely vague?
Yeah, of course.
I'll try not to be too clear. Too specific. That's what
and this is funny because this is the problem with leaving here to go to some other place that where people are less this way, and that is that ultimately there's nothing stopping people like this from coming in and instituting the same thing there. I thought I actually was coming to a saner place than the area of California that I left. But they're doing the same stuff here, and they're completely envious of California.
Not only do things like the State Ethics Commission investigating commissioners, not only does that spread, but look what happened. Dave Toller used to be a commissioner here. And this guy, especially toward the end, every day he was saying bizarre things, and we were catching him on tape, and it was hard to keep up. He was just saying things where total non sequiturs. Was like, where did that come from? Even the other commissioners were looking at him like, what the heck did that guy just say? Now Dave is working over in Jackson County, and look what happened to Art Harvey, the guy that when Sandy Casanelli said, you didn't check 646 of these things? He just said, well, you can just appeal to the state. Where did he go? He went over to Jackson County. Our infection is spreading.
Yeah. It's Jackson County is in deep doo-doo.
Is there a safe place you can go? Well, We're here to try to make it a little safer. This doesn't say no huevos. This says no lemons. Okay.
But yes, yeah, just I wondered about that because when I first hook up to Dale, I don't always see things. The clarity fluctuates in and out, and I thought, wow, what do we got going on here?
Well, why is that over his shoulder? Well,
no, you know what? Listen, this situation, it's indicative of what's going on nationally too. Yes. Is that you have a Democratic Party that means big government to people. You have a Republican Party that theoretically means small government to people. Theoretically. And this is a great, as a matter of fact, Doug Goodwin just left this on my thing, and it really strikes home. Left it on my Facebook page. And so right now you have both parties mean the same thing. And we as the people are sick of no pushback. We want pushback. We want, wait a minute, both of these, it used to be that both particular divisions of society had somewhere to go to get what they wanted out of government. That doesn't exist anymore. So, and this explains Trump, and it explains, other messing around with third parties like, the libertarians or Rand Paul, that sort of thing. It explains all of that. And, we're sort of doing that on this level here locally. And look at how much trouble we get into. Come along with us.
Look how much trouble we get into simply by pointing out, well, wait, the emperor has no clothes. And they're calling us names. They try to cut us off from speaking at meetings. We get these really virulent responses from people on Facebook. You ought to just die. You ought to shut up. You shouldn't be allowed to speak. We've got people who get up and specifically point at me and say, that guy should not be allowed to speak. I'm rude. I'm disruptive. I'm out of control. What the heck?
Right.
Can you not put up with any other ideas in life?
And so they're sick of the fact we've been pushing back for 20 years on taxes.
Yes.
And they hate that. So now they're going to have the big thugs boot come down and land on our neck down here. And they're dying to do that. They can't wait to do that.
Well, one of the saving graces, just one, is whether you like this show or not. Why are you watching the show? Well, I'm watching it because I'm gathering notes. Okay, I'm scribbling 100 miles an hour like Cheryl Walker. Maybe she is. One of the things is the commissioners and the people who've been pushing this stuff have always had the media simply transcribing what they were saying.
Yeah.
Now that's no longer the case for two reasons. One is we got kind of half-hearted support from some of the people at the Courier, but the other thing is this is on every night. You can see the video for yourself. You don't have to listen to our commentary. You can watch it. We post it. And now what are they going to do? They don't even, they're willing to pay to get their exact words placed into a newspaper because it's not working.
Well, you wait until this hits the news and it gets solidified on the ballot. The viewership of this program is probably going to go through the roof because, number one, people are not going to know what it means. Yeah. And they're going to be looking for analysis on it. And there probably is not going to be a lot available in other media. So.
And we don't make any money off of this. So just want to remind people occasionally. I know Mike goes, I understand that, but we get enough criticism as it is without someone saying, you're just doing it to make a buck. No, we're not. We're doing it because we're trying to make it a better place.
Hey, who's doing that? Nobody is doing that. Dale imagines people criticizing him. It's like,
well, they're not, are they?
There's a little Bernie Sanders in the back of Dale's head going, you better watch out. People are going to think that you're evil for trying to make a profit.
Have you ever seen a rabbit with glasses? See, there's my proof. Eat carrots because it's going to improve your eyesight.
I see.
Yeah,
okay.
It makes about as much sense. Go ahead, play a little bit more of the tape.
Could there be some line put in there that, the county could potentially renewed for 18 months? Could we put in there could potentially put to the voters and a tax for the 50% or something?
I think that would be better in the actual and the expanded 500 words because that's a detail I don't think is necessary to the.
Because if people come, if by chance this were to pass, and people say, oh yeah, we want you to do that, and then we say, well, now we're going to have to assess a tax because state gives us $4 million, we already have $4 million, we still don't have enough for public safety. It's not going to be enough.
I believe that has to be in the substance. It's a fundamental element of what the intent was.
Yeah, because we can't do it. If they say do this, we can't do it.
Well, we could.
Without a tax.
It wouldn't solve.
It wouldn't solve the problem. It wouldn't solve the problem.
And this isn't necessarily, I don't think it was intended to solve all of the problems, to provide, an 18-month stopgap measure of additional revenues provided by the state, frankly, to get you somewhere else. The problem with all of these potential solutions, they don't get you. What do they get you?
They don't get us. They buy us 18 months.
Yep.
It doesn't solve the problem. Also, do we have to pay that money back to the state?
No, there's no statutory requirement for that. But the agreement is quite open in terms of what, the governor and the board of commissioners could agree to. So
isn't that nice? It's quite open as to what they could agree to. That's the governor and the board of commissioners.
Now, somebody was asking the question there if you were statutorily required to pay it back to the state. If they're going to impose a greater level of taxation on the people in order to finance that money, why would you then have to pay it back to the state?
Because the commissioners are afraid that if they get money in to do the other things that they want to do, that they may have to pay it back out of their slush fund back to the government, and they don't want to do that.
Okay.
This whole thing is really about, you hear over and over and over and over again, they're not saying, what do you think the people want? What they're mainly saying is, how can this lead to more taxes? Will this lead to more taxes? How many more taxes will it lead to? What flavor of taxes will it be? What color of taxes will it be? Taxes, taxes, taxes.
Yeah, the problem with all of this, on top of the greater level of taxation from the state, is that they're going to begin to dictate terms to us as to what we're going to do with the money, how we're going to do it, what time of day you can do it, and you probably see a greater presence of them down here, and then they're going to gin up the issues with these little deadbeat counties down there with the people in the rest of the state. And it's just going to be an ugly picture.
And here's the worst part. Who are our lead negotiators? Well, 4 of them when you count Wally Hicks. These are our negotiators. The people that you see at that table, those will be our negotiators. It's very much like when the commissioners make a deal with the unions. First, you don't get to hear anything about it. Second, they can sell the farm and they don't care, right? Because you're going to be paying it. And they're our lead negotiators. And do you want Simon Hare representing you to do anything?
Yeah, generally no.
Right. This is the sellout meeting. This is an easy indication of the idea that these guys are considering selling out. This is like the government of France deciding exactly how many Jews they're going to lock up, and exactly how fast they're going to give up their and will fly the white flag and the swastika and all the rest of that stuff. This is the collaboration meeting. They're collaborators. And they're happy to talk about it. Well, if it means more taxes, why, and Simon has been to meetings with the state. They're called, I'm not going to get the exact right wording, but it's states that are counties in the state that are in an emergency situation. See, right from the get-go, it's all about this emergency that's non-existent. That's how the governor would come down here. It's part of the emergency plan.
Yeah, of course.
So these guys have been constantly telling the state, these lunkhead people back there, why they just won't listen to reason, and this is an emergency, and this is an emergency, and don't forget it's an emergency. It is not an emergency. It may not be ideal, but it's what we want. And you can't always have the ideal, but it's not an emergency. Why, I want steak for dinner. It's an emergency. No, you're going to get macaroni and cheese for dinner. Well, I don't like macaroni and cheese. I want steak. You can't have it. Well, it's an emergency.
Right.
No, it's not.
Yes, that's a good analogy. Yes.
So it's mac and cheese again. That's what we decided on. You don't like it? Go eat somewhere else.
That's right.
Stop trying to eat us. Go ahead, Mike. Something like that.
The subsequent versions of 3453 had these fiscal review board, and, basically it started out, the state would come in here, evaluate your books, and almost take over all the discretion that you have.
Oh,
Right.
no.
Clerk, treasurer, all of
You
it.
don't get to send money anywhere
Right.
else anymore. And frankly, we don't spend that much to any other department other than the criminal justice system. 70% of those discretionary dollars go to the criminal justice system
Right.
now. It might be 66%, but it's roughly 70.
Now listen to these numbers.
If we did, the surveyor's office is probably the one that would shut down because it's a significant amount of a very small number. But the clerk's office is, say, $60,000. They're not going to shut down. They're going to reduce their hours, and they're going to lay off a person or two. But they're going to still be able to operate at probably 70%. You only have 4 staff. So once you start taking away people, you get a reduction in the output pretty significantly. And almost they can't do too much because they've got to facilitate the elections process. They're mandated to do these services. So you don't get a lot of discretion. It's kind of like the assessor's office. At some point, if we don't meet the CAFA requirement, CAFA, you're going to be in default with the state, and they're not going to, provide you the resources that they currently do.
CAFA. Okay. Think about assessment function. Assessment function. It's the county assessment function funding. I have to look at my note to be sure I says assistance, funding assistance. So it's county assessment function funding assistance. Stupid acronym. So what they're saying is if you cannot keep up with your assessor, which most of the counties apparently can't, really, then the state will help you out. Well, it's just coming out of another pocket. But that was real interesting what Simon Hare said is, it used to be that this legislation included someone coming down here to investigate our books. Well, not anymore. Oh, okay, that's a good deal.
Yeah.
Don't need to worry about that anymore.
Right. Exactly.
How lovely.
Yes, how nice.
Mike?
That's the other thing with 3453. They could assume responsibility for certain elements, and the first thing they go after is tax collecting. Tax collecting so that they're in charge of the distribution of your revenue that you generate. And they'll send you a bill and say, this is what it costs us to do tax collection. I know it costs you $600,000, but it's costing us nothing. So that's coming right off the top. And every other thing that they would be planning, clerk, it would be not so positive.
So all of the explanation that we've talked about in regards to the potentiality of how this would have to be implemented could be in that following explanatory statement rather than the ballot summary.
Yes.
Okay. Because I don't have any problem with the ballot summary.
The second paragraph says, after making the proclamation, the governor may enter into a written agreement. Is it more accurate to say the county may enter into a written agreement?
It's the same. Sure, we can say it that way.
Because of the way there is a governor is the initiator, so to speak.
Yeah.
The county, they're asking there.
How I read this is after the county makes a proclamation when we are in a criminal justice state of emergency, we made our petition to the state.
Right.
The governor has the discretion to say, and I don't think you've done everything you need to do, or you don't meet the qualifications, because there are none that are set out that say, when you reduce your jail by X number per capita, or you only have 4 patrols per 1,642 square miles, or they can put their own meter and say, no, you don't meet it. You're not there yet. And so they could say no.
Well, and it says in here.
Sentence is structured. I see it very, very accurate.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, and it says after the making the proclamation, the governor may enter into a written agreement with the county's governing body. So it does include both the parties, that it has to be an agreement between the parties. It's not going to be an imposition that we don't agree to.
That's right.
Oh, what an important exchange that was. Okay, so Keith asks, well, can we have it so that it's the governor that's imposing this? And the answer is it's a joint thing. No, you can't make it so it's just the governor. well, what about when the proclamation happens? And then Simon says, well, the governor may say, well, this isn't an emergency, but where are they getting all of their information? From the sheriff, from legal counsel, Wally Hicks, and from these commissioners. They're not getting any information from the public.
Right. Yeah. Right. So it's going to be whatever they say it is, and they'll find out what criteria the governor needs, and bada bing, bada boom, there you go.
Declare an emergency.
Yeah.
You watch, these commissioners have already said it's an emergency. At what point are they going to declare an official county emergency? And that's the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right after they get some sort of answer on this vote, I guess, because from what I figure, it doesn't really matter what the answer is. As a matter of fact, they're probably counting on the negative answer, and they'll say, well, the negative answer, we've already determined that the conditions exist for an emergency, barring new funding, and you just said no new funding, so now we have to do this. You know, and that's how they're going to do this.
Let's take a quick vote. Let's take a quick vote here among our representatives. Okay, we already know what these characters are going to say. What is Greg Walden going to say? Yes, it's an emergency. What is Carl Wilson going to say? Sure is an emergency. What is Herman Bercher going to say? Well, I would like to go around the community a little bit more and put a price tag on this, but it's obvious that it's an emergency. Done. Yeah. Dwayne Stark, you know, hardly anybody knows who this guy is, but certainly they're all going to say the same thing. Are they going to listen to people, the regular folks? Well, heck no.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you got that nailed.
Lovely. Okay. I think there's one or two more clips, and that's all.
Yeah, there's 57 seconds left here.
Oh, this will be fun.
The one thing that I would want to figure out a way to say that if any additional revenue generating mechanism were to be needed to satisfy the full need of the criminal justice system, that would have to go to the voters. Yeah. But revenue generated would be matched through this provision, dollar for dollar, by the state, as long as this agreement were in place.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, and yeah, I'll try not to be too clear or too precise in terms of what the agreement would involve, because we don't
know what that agreement
you come to if this ends up going through.
Well, that's the perfect capper to it.
Wow.
I'll try not to be too clear or too precise.
Well, you know what? I mean, it kind of sounds like there's nothing we're going to be able to do about this, short of seeing it coming and making a big stink about it in advance of them doing it, because let's examine this. After they do their little BS question on the May ballot, what's to stop them from immediately implementing that? And a bare minimum, they have until the 1st of January of 2017 to do all of this, even if they're replaced by a majority of the vote in the May election, even if Cheryl and Keith get ixnayed in May.
See, there's the other challenge. Let's suppose that let's suppose that Cheryl and Keith are pushed out. They're not in the final running. And then what you have, the best scenario I can think of is you've got a couple of fiscal conservatives who believe the people ought to be in charge, and then you've got a couple of people who are fence sitters.
Right.
They don't know. They say they don't know what they want to do. Okay. Now,
well, listen, I'll tell you what we need. We need to put out a survey at about this time when this whole thing is going down, because they've telegraphed it. We know it's coming, and get some volunteer phone bank people and get some serious numbers to the survey, and establish that we know what they're up to, and that we don't want that the people of the county are not in favor of any decisions made by this board in their lame duck status.
That is the best suggestion I've heard in a long time, because we got to be thinking here. Okay, so what is it that these guys are after? They say they already know what the answer is going to be. Okay, there's a clue. So they're going to take some kind of action because they're hot on taking some kind of action. You can see it. Yeah. What possible action could they take when the people say, no, we don't want this? Why would they be happy about that? Why would they be happy? Let's think here for a second. Yeah. I don't know the answer. Why would they be happy?
They're doing this for a reason. Yes. This is, they're spending all those people in the room colluding about this thing. They're pursuing a particular goal here. They want a particular answer to this question. We
haven't talked about this. Mike and I have not talked about it. Mike, we're going to take just an extra couple of minutes. What is the reason why they're looking forward to people saying, we don't want the governor to come in and take over? How does this advance their goal about getting more taxes?
Boy, yeah, you got me. I don't know what their plan is on that. I mean, you would think, how can they make lemonade out of that, from their point of view?
Yeah, but I don't want any lemons. I made that clear here, right over my shoulder.
Yes. So yeah, you don't, but they do.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're not going to do the same thing that they do all the time. Well, we've got the brilliant. We're going to ask you. Send us an email. Here's the place to which to send that email. You tell us, what do you think? I don't want it. I don't want it. We got that already. Everybody knows that. Okay. What is their plan? How does it help these characters to get a negative response from people? Why will that help them get a property tax on us?
Yeah, and just to be clear, this has to do with an advisory question that is going to be put on the May ballot that is loosely, do you want the governor, or do you want the state government to come in and take over the administration of criminal justice in this county?
So what are they not telling us? There's something about this where, and they've already said, Simon has said it, Cheryl has said it, and Keith has been asleep. What is it that they are looking forward to in getting a blowout response, 80%, 90% of people saying, we don't want the state to come in here? Why? How does that help them?
How does that serve their purpose?
Yeah, how does it serve their purpose?
Yeah,
please,
boy,
share your intelligence with us.
Yeah, I'd really like to know, because sometimes several heads are better than one, and that boggles the mind. But they clearly have some sort of a plan. So think like Cheryl.
No, do I have to?
I'm going to take a nap right after this program.
So then you'll be thinking like Keith. Okay, right,
right, yes. This is interesting, because clearly, this is part of the plan. Why, what would the point of the question? Why would you even ask the question unless you have a goal in mind? These people don't do that sort of thing. They're not just going, yeah, I wonder, do you like blue or brown better? What do you like better? It isn't that. This is this is a means to an end.
We're going to think about it too. And because we do this every day, as you know, we're going to think about it and see if we can come up with some kind of potential answer, because they're not going to tell us, obviously, but it is really obvious that they're looking forward to the answer from this question, and they already know it's going to be a complete blowout. So how does this serve them?
It depends on the formulation of the question. I tend to think that probably the formulation of the question will give us the answer that we need, because these people are not that deep. So I think it'll probably be pretty obvious once the question is out there.
All right, here's the first shot at it. I know we're going a little bit over, but here's the first shot at it. As Cheryl wants it to say, if the question says, would you like the governor to come down here and take over everything and then impose a tax to, serve the children and do this thing, which you're saying we don't need, but of course we need it, and all the rest of this stuff, or we don't want it. And so if people said, no, we don't want the governor to do that, then maybe they're going to say, well, look, the people have clearly said that they know that we have a need for higher taxes. They just don't want the governor to do it. It's kind of blind.
Yeah, but that doesn't get them to the place that they need to be, which is that's it. We have an emergency. It's all over.
So somehow I don't see it working, although I haven't seen anything they've done working. I haven't seen anything that they've done working, but here's a potential where for November, they can say, well, look, I think this is a misreading of it, but we made it clear that we need this money, and nobody's arguing that we don't need more money and that we don't need more taxes. They just don't want the governor to do it. So obviously that's why we're putting it on the ballot. It's pretty weak. Pretty weak.
Yeah, that is pretty weak. But yeah, you're right. They are pretty weak. It makes total sense. With what we know right now, that makes total sense. I could see that happening.
I don't like that answer because it doesn't make any sense, but I don't like most of the answers because they don't make any sense. Follow the will of the people. That's the thing that makes sense, whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, get out. That's all. That's all. Okay, and that's all for us. Thank you, Mike. Mike, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dale.
That's all.
You're welcome.
That's all.
All right, push the button for crying out.
Good night, everybody. Go home. Oh, you're home. Bye.